I never expected my life to change so drastically, so suddenly. But there I was, in the middle of a storm I couldn't control, staring at the love of my life, my husband, Michael, as he handed me divorce papers with a smirk on his face. I had just come home from the market, bags of fresh plantains and tomatoes hanging from my arms, the vibrant colors of the local Lego streets still fresh in my mind, the sounds of street vendors selling their wares, the smell of fried Akara in the air, and the buzz of Lagos traffic. All of it felt so distant as I stood in front of the man I had once trusted completely. "Is this a joke?" I asked, my voice trembling as I looked at him. Michael, my husband of 12 years, stared at me coldly. His once warm eyes, filled with love and passion, now seemed foreign, empty. "No joke, Jane," he said, his voice flat. "I found someone else. I'm leaving. It's over." I could barely comprehend what he was saying. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing as my heart beat loudly in my chest. How could this be happening? I thought, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. I had been loyal. I had supported him through thick and thin. I had always put our family first. And yet, here he was, leaving me for another woman. But then, as if the betrayal wasn't enough, he added something that sent my world spinning. "I don't care about the money," he said, sneering as if it were nothing. "You can keep everything. You can keep your $500 million. I don't need it." That hit me like a slap to the face. My hands shook as I dropped the divorce papers. The words $500 million hung in the air, but it didn't make sense. What was he talking about? "You've been hiding money from me?" I asked, my voice rising now. "What do you mean? What money?" Michael just shook his head, disgusted. "You never knew about the assets I've been managing. I didn't want you to know. But now it doesn't matter. I'm out." Before I could say anything else, he turned and walked out of the door, leaving me standing there, stunned. It was only then that the weight of his words truly hit me. $500 million. That was the amount he was leaving behind, an amount I had never known existed. My mind raced to piece everything together. How could I have been so blind? How could I have been married to someone for over a decade and not known anything about this? And just when I thought my world couldn't get any worse, the phone rang. It was the hospital. "Is this Jane Osunbayi? Your husband, Michael, has been involved in an accident. He's in critical condition. We need you to come immediately." I froze. Michael? In critical condition? The same man who had just walked out on me, leaving me in shock and disbelief? Now he was fighting for his life. My thoughts were a blur. I quickly grabbed my things and rushed to the hospital, my mind heavy with confusion, anger, and a deep sense of betrayal. What did this mean? As I sat in the hospital waiting room, a cold realization washed over me. The man who had torn our family apart was now lying unconscious in a coma, and I was left with the pieces of a life I didn't recognize anymore. I looked at my phone again, the words $500 million flashing before my eyes. I had no idea what that money represented, but I was determined to find out. I had questions, so many questions, and one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let Michael's secrets define me. Not now. Not ever. The room seemed to close in on me. The ticking of the clock on the wall, the sterile smell of antiseptic in the air, the low hum of the fluorescent lights. Everything felt suffocating. And then it hit me. Michael had no idea what he was leaving behind. He thought he had outsmarted me, but he had no clue what I was capable of. My mind was made up. I would uncover everything. And when I did, Michael would regret the day he ever crossed me. I was done being a passive player in my own life. Welcome to this channel. Thank you so much for your incredible support. Your likes, comments, and shares mean the world to us. Before we dive into today's heart-wrenching story, please subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell, and drop a comment below. Let us know where you're watching from. Are you tuning in from Lagos, New York, London, or somewhere else? We love connecting with our global family. I was numb as I sat in the hospital's waiting room, my mind trying to process what had just happened. Michael, my husband, was in a coma, fighting for his life, but all I could think about was the $500 million he had mentioned. How could I not know? How could he keep something so huge from me for so long? I leaned back in my seat, trying to steady my breathing. The sterile, white walls of the hospital felt suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I had spent years building a life with Michael, sacrificing so much to support his dreams, his career, our family. And now this, a new wife, a hidden fortune, and the shocking reality that everything I thought I knew about my marriage was a lie. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. I glanced at the screen. It was a text from my sister, Ifeoma. How is he? Have you spoken to him? You know I'm here for you, right? Just remember, you deserve better than this. I quickly typed back, trying to keep my emotions in check. Ife, you won't believe this. He's in a coma. And he's left me everything. Everything but the truth. I felt my heart tighten as I hit send. It was the truth, though, wasn't it? He had left me everything but the one thing I needed most. Honesty he had taken with him to his grave. The nurse interrupted my thoughts as she approached me. Ms. Osunbayi, you can see your husband now. He's stable, but his condition is critical. I nodded and stood, following her down the long, empty corridor. Each step I took felt heavier than the last. The thought of seeing Michael lying there, unconscious, in a hospital bed felt unreal. After everything, the man I had loved for years was now a stranger, lying motionless in front of me. I entered the room, and my breath caught in my throat. Michael's once strong, proud frame was now frail and hooked up to machines. His face, usually so full of life, looked pale, his lips chapped, and his eyes were closed in a deep, unnatural sleep. The soft beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room, and it echoed through the silence like a constant reminder of how fragile everything had become. I walked to his side, feeling my stomach churn with mixed emotions. Part of me wanted to cry, to scream at him for what he'd done to me. But the other part, the part that had loved him deeply, felt a strange sense of pity. Michael? I whispered softly, my hand trembling as I reached out to touch his cold fingers. Why? Why did you do this to us? I sat down in the chair beside him, still holding his hand. The world outside the room seemed distant, and I couldn't help but think about the man I had married and the man I was now staring at. How could he have done this? But then, as I sat there, something caught my eye. A small, leather-bound notebook was lying on the bedside table. It wasn't there the last time I'd visited. Curiosity gnawed at me, and without thinking, I picked it up. As I opened it, I saw that it was filled with scribbles in Michael's handwriting. Notes, numbers, and what appeared to be a list of names. I skimmed through the pages, feeling my heart race as I recognized some of the names. There was one name in particular that stood out. Amara. My stomach twisted in knots as I traced my finger over the name. Who was she? I immediately texted Ifeoma. I found something. There's someone else. Her name is Amara. I think she's the one he's been seeing. The response came quickly. Jane, you need to be careful. I don't like where this is going. I was already thinking the same thing. The more I read, the more questions surfaced. What was Michael's connection to Amara? Why had he been so secretive about her? Was she the reason he had left me? I felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Michael had been hiding so much from me, and now, even in a coma, his secrets were coming to light. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I needed answers. I stood up abruptly, pacing the small hospital room. The anger that had been simmering inside me was finally starting to boil over. I had been the dutiful wife, the one who had sacrificed everything for this man. And now, he had left me with nothing but lies. But that wasn't all I had. I had my strength, and I wasn't going to let this go. I picked up the notebook again, my fingers trembling as I turned the pages. One thing was clear. I needed to find Amara. I would find out everything. Every lie, every secret, every betrayal. And when I did, Michael would regret the day he ever crossed me. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The thought of Michael's betrayal, his new life, and the sudden appearance of this woman, Amara, haunted me as I sat by his bedside. The notebook with Michael's scribbles was now tucked safely in my purse, a symbol of the war I was about to fight. I had always been the quiet, reserved one in our marriage, letting Michael take the lead, believing in him, trusting him. But now the mask was off and I was done being the passive bystander. I had questions that needed answers. The next morning, I met with Ifeoma at the cafe near the hospital. She could see the tension in my face the moment I sat down. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, her voice soft, yet full of concern. "I have," I replied, showing her the notebook. I opened it to the page with Amara's name and handed it to her. Ifeoma glanced at it quickly, her brow furrowing as she read the notes. She raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "So what now?" she asked, taking a sip of her coffee. "Do you think he's been seeing her for long?" I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation settle in. "It's obvious, isn't it? All these names and figures, they aren't just random. This woman, Amara, she's more than just a fling. She's involved in something bigger. He's been hiding something, Ifeoma, and I need to know what it is." "What are you thinking?" she asked, her voice low. "I'm going to find her," I said, determination rising in my chest. If Michael thought he could walk away from me and leave me in the dark about everything, he's got another thing coming. I'll uncover the truth, whatever it takes. Ifeoma sighed, knowing once I made up my mind, there was no stopping me. "Be careful, Jane. I'm all for you getting your answers, but this could get ugly." I nodded, appreciating her concern. "I'm ready. I have to do this. For myself. For our family." As I left the cafe, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into something much bigger than I had anticipated. Michael's accident, his coma, and now the discovery of this woman, Amara. It all felt too orchestrated, too deliberate. I went straight to the private investigator I'd hired a few weeks ago. I didn't know why, but I had a gut feeling that something was off with Michael's business dealings. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was a nagging voice in my head telling me that the accident wasn't as simple as it seemed. "Jane, you're back early," the investigator, Tund, said when he saw me walk into his office. He was a seasoned professional, someone who knew how to dig deep into the shadows and uncover secrets. "Have you found anything on Michael?" I asked, my voice tight. Tund handed me a file, his expression unreadable. "You weren't wrong to be suspicious. Michael's business dealings are complicated. He's been managing a portfolio of investments under a different name. And Amara? She's not just some woman. She's involved in a real estate scheme, big money, Jane. Your husband has been laundering money for the past few years, hiding it under various business names. And Amara? She's his partner in all of this." I felt my stomach drop. Michael, the man I had loved and trusted, had been running a money laundering operation behind my back, and Amara was in on it? "How much money are we talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling. Tund hesitated for a moment before answering. "Well over $100 million, Jane. And that's just what we've uncovered so far. There could be more." I sat back in my chair, my head spinning. This was far beyond anything I had imagined. Michael hadn't just been cheating on me. He had been living a double life, one filled with deceit, corruption, and greed. But then, something clicked in my mind. $500 million. The amount Michael had so casually mentioned to me the night he handed me the divorce papers. I had thought it was just his way of pushing me away. But now it made sense. That money was tied to the scheme, tied to Amara. I need to find her, I said, standing up. I need to know what else Michael has been hiding. I need to find out everything about the money, about the businesses, about the lies. And I'm not stopping until I do. Tund looked at me, his face serious. I understand, Jane, but be careful. The people involved in this are dangerous. They won't hesitate to protect their secrets. I've lived in fear for too long, I said, my voice firm. Now it's my turn to take control. As I walked out of Tund's office, I felt a rush of determination surge through me. I wasn't just going to let Michael's betrayal destroy me. I was going to turn it around, expose the lies, and claim what was rightfully mine. The journey ahead wasn't going to be easy. It was going to be filled with danger, deception, and heartbreak. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready to fight for the truth. The sun was setting over Lagos as I stood outside the sleek, glass building that housed one of the most exclusive real estate firms in the city. This was where Michael had hidden his money. This was where Amara was. Everything that had led me here, the betrayal, the lies, the broken promises, was about to come to a head. I had done my research. Tund's investigation had revealed everything I needed to know about Amara. She wasn't just a pretty face. She was a force in the business world. A woman who knew how to play the game and who wasn't afraid to break the rules. The building in front of me was sleek, modern, and far too pristine for my liking. Inside, behind those glass walls, were the answers I needed. And Amara, the woman who had been living my life behind my back, was somewhere in there. I took a deep breath and walked inside, the door opening with a soft whoosh. The cool, air-conditioned air hit me immediately, and the clean scent of fresh flowers mixed with the faint scent of expensive leather and wood. I felt out of place. My simple dress and sandals didn't fit the luxury around me. But that didn't matter. I wasn't here to be admired. I was here to expose the truth. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked, her eyes scanning me with mild curiosity. "I'm here to see Amara," I said, my voice steady even though my heart was pounding in my chest. "I have an appointment." The receptionist raised an eyebrow but didn't question me further. "I'll let her know you're here. Please have a seat." I took a seat in the waiting area, trying to remain composed. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. I had spent years with Michael, believing we had built something real, something solid. But now it felt like it had all been a lie. And this woman, Amara, was at the center of it all. I had to understand her role in this story. It wasn't long before the receptionist stood up and gestured for me to follow. "Ms. Amara will see you now." My legs felt like they were made of lead as I followed the receptionist down a long, polished hallway. The door to Amara's office was already open, and I could hear voices inside. One of them was unmistakable, Amara's. The other I couldn't tell. But I didn't need to know who else was there. I was about to confront the woman who had changed everything for me. I knocked lightly on the doorframe and stepped inside. Amara looked up from her desk, her perfectly manicured fingers pausing on the keyboard of her laptop. She looked stunning, as I had expected. Her hair was slicked back into a smooth ponytail, and her outfit, a sharp, black suit, exuded power. She was every bit the image of a successful, confident woman. Her eyes narrowed as they met mine. "Can I help you, Amara?" I said, keeping my voice calm. "We need to talk." She leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "About what exactly?" "I know about you and Michael," I said, my words coming out stronger than I felt. "I know about the business dealings, the money, and everything he's been hiding from me. And I want answers." Amara's lips curled into a slight smile, but there was no warmth in it. "I see. And what exactly do you think you're going to do with these answers?" "Make sure Michael regrets ever crossing me," I replied, my voice low but steady. "I don't know what kind of game you two were playing, but I'm done being a pawn. I'm going to expose everything." Amara chuckled softly, clearly unfazed by my words. You're delusional if you think you can take down what we've built, Jane. Michael may be your husband, but he's made his choices. And so have I. I stared at her, shocked by her confidence. You think you can just walk away from all this? You think this is over? Michael's in a coma, and you're still playing the game like it's nothing. Her gaze softened for a moment, but only for a moment. You really don't understand, do you? This isn't just about Michael. This is about power, control, money, things you clearly never understood. My fists clenched at my sides. I understand just fine. You may have the money, but you don't have the power. You don't get to destroy my family and think you can walk away without consequences. Her smile faded as she stood up from her desk, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She took a step closer, her presence imposing. You should be careful, Jane. This isn't a game for you. You're playing with fire, and you'll get burned. I didn't flinch. I'm done being afraid, and I'm done being quiet. Amara studied me for a moment before stepping back, sitting down again in her chair. Fine, she said, her voice losing its earlier venom. If you want the truth, you'll get it. But be careful what you ask for. I walked toward the door, my mind racing with the implications of her words. She wasn't just a business partner to Michael. She was far deeper in this mess than I had ever imagined. But I was more determined than ever to get to the bottom of it. As I left the building, my mind was buzzing with everything Amara had said. She'd hinted at something darker, something far more complicated than just money and betrayal. And I was going to uncover it all, no matter what it took. But there was one thing I knew for sure now. This wasn't just about Michael and Amara. It was about something bigger, and I was going to be the one to bring it all to light. That night, I couldn't shake the look in Amara's eyes when she warned me. It wasn't fear, it was confidence. She knew something I didn't, and it unsettled me. For the first time in years, I realized Michael hadn't been living two lives. He'd been living three. I sat at my dining table, the notebook spread open, pages filled with scribbled transactions, coded names, and numbers that made my head spin. The hum of Lagos nightlife drifted in through the window. Okada horns, neighbors laughing in pidgin, the faint sound of Afrobeats blaring from a nearby shop. The world outside felt alive, but my heart was heavy. I flipped another page, and there it was again. Amara's name, circled in red. But this time, there was something else written beside it. Marriage arrangement. Final step. My chest tightened. Marriage arrangement? I remembered Michael's cold words before he walked out. I've found someone else. I'm leaving. It's over. It wasn't just infidelity. It was a full replacement. He had been planning to start a new life with Amara. Not as a mistress, but as his wife. The realization stung. I had given 12 years of my life to him. I had sacrificed my own career to raise our children, run the home, and support his ambitions. And all along, he had been building an escape plan with her. I couldn't keep this to myself. I called Ifeoma. Ife, I found something, I said, my voice shaking. Michael wasn't just cheating. He was planning to marry Amara. It's written here. He wanted to erase me. There was silence on the line. Then Ifeoma sighed heavily. Jane, I don't know how to say this, but I'm not surprised. He always had that arrogance. But you, sister, you have the upper hand now. He's lying in that hospital bed. His empire is crumbling. You hold the keys. Her words struck me. She was right. For once, I wasn't powerless. Michael might have thought he was replacing me, but fate had other plans. The next day, I returned to the hospital. His new family, her family, was already there. My stomach dropped as I walked into the corridor and saw Amara herself sitting outside his room, wearing a traditional iro and buba, her geli wrapped neatly around her head. She wasn't there as a business partner. She was there as a wife. The moment she saw me, her lips curled into a mocking smile. You don't belong here, Jane, she said calmly, her voice cutting like a knife. Michael chose me. You were the practice. My hands trembled, but I stood my ground. You think sitting here makes you his wife? He's not dead yet, Amara. And until then, I am still Mrs. Osunbai. Her smile faded slightly, but her confidence remained. Not for long. Before I could respond, the doctor stepped out of Michael's room. Mrs. Osunbai, he said, looking directly at me. We need to talk. It's about your husband's medical decisions. I glanced at Amara, then back at the doctor. My heart pounded. This was it, the moment of truth. As the doctor led me away, Amara's glare followed me, burning into my back. She thought she had already won. But she didn't know me. She didn't know the fire that had been awakened inside me. For the first time in a long time, I felt power shift into my hands, and I wasn't about to let it go. I walked into the room, my heart pounding with both dread and determination. The doctor led me into a small consultation room, away from the prying eyes in the hallway. I knew Amara would be watching, waiting to see how I reacted, how I would bend under the weight of her control. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not now. Not ever. Mrs. Osunbai, the doctor began, his voice steady but laced with concern. We need to discuss your husband's condition. The coma is still a deep one, and we're at a critical point. He's not showing signs of improvement and... He hesitated, glancing at the papers in his hand. His next of kin needs to make some decisions regarding his medical care. Amara has already signed consent forms, but we need you to confirm your position. I stared at him, speechless for a moment. Amara? I turned to the doctor, my mind racing. What are you saying? She's already making decisions for him? The doctor sighed, his expression sympathetic. She's listed as his emergency contact. She's been here more than you have, and I cut him off. I don't care who she is. I'm his wife. I have a right to make decisions about his health, not her. The doctor seemed uncomfortable but nodded. I understand. I'll get the necessary paperwork for you to sign. But, just so you know, legally it might be more complicated than just being his wife. I clenched my jaw, feeling the weight of the situation press down on me. The thought of Amara, that woman, making decisions about my husband's life, even as he lay unconscious, made my blood boil. She had already stepped into my place, and now she was trying to take over everything, even my right to fight for him. No, I said firmly, my voice shaking with controlled fury. I'm making the decisions. If Michael is going to survive, it's going to be on my terms. The doctor nodded and left, his footsteps fading down the hallway. But I barely heard them. My mind was already on fire, turning over everything that had led to this point. Michael's betrayal, Amara's interference, and the money. The $500 million that had started this whole mess. When I returned to Michael's room, Amara was sitting at his bedside. The fake sympathy on her face made me want to scream. Her fingers were curled around his, and she was whispering something softly, probably trying to make herself feel like the wife she'd been pretending to be. I stood there for a moment, taking it all in, before I stepped forward. Amara, I said, my voice quiet but filled with authority. We need to talk. She looked up, her eyes flashing with that same confident, almost mocking glint. What is it now, Jane? Her tone was too sweet, too perfect. Still trying to hold on to a marriage that's already over? I didn't answer her immediately. Instead, I walked closer to Michael's bed, standing beside her. For a moment, I just stared at him, lying there, unconscious, completely unaware of the chaos surrounding him. I could feel the years of pain welling up inside me, but I pushed it aside. This isn't just about us anymore, Amara, I said slowly. It's about the truth. Michael's money, his business, his secrets. I could see her flinch, but she didn't pull back. She wanted to stand her ground, and so did I. You think you've won, I continued, but I'm not going to let you take everything from me. You're not going to take his business, You're not going to take the family. You're not going to take our life together. Amara's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't one of triumph. It was one of cold, calculated victory. "Oh, Jane," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're so naive. You think you have the power? You think you can control this? Michael is mine now. He's always been mine. I'm not just here to take his money. I'm here to own it." My stomach turned. She truly thought she had everything wrapped up in a bow. But I wasn't about to let her walk away with my husband's life, his legacy, and the money he'd stolen from me. "You've underestimated me," I said, locking eyes with her. "You think you've got it all figured out, but I know more than you think. And I'm going to make sure Michael's empire, everything he built with me, is protected. And when he wakes up, he'll see who's been loyal." Amara stood, her heels clicking sharply against the floor as she walked toward the door. "You'll regret this, Jane. You think you can win, but I've already won." She reached for the door handle, her back to me as she glanced over her shoulder one last time. "Don't forget, you're just the wife. I'm the future." And with that, she was gone. The door slammed shut behind her, but it didn't end there. I stood there in silence for a moment, absorbing her words. The room felt like it was spinning. Amara was confident, but she didn't know what I had planned. This wasn't just about Michael's money or his betrayal anymore. This was about the fight for everything I had built with him, the life, the family, the empire. I wasn't going to let her have it. The days blurred together. The hospital visits, the phone calls, the quiet whispers of concern from my family. It all felt like a never-ending cycle of betrayal and uncertainty. But what really kept me up at night, what really gnawed at me, was the thought of Michael and Amara. The two of them had built this secret world, this business empire, and now, with Michael in a coma, it was up to me to tear it apart, or put it back together. I had decided to confront Michael's family. They needed to know everything. If Amara thought she could control Michael's life from his hospital bed, she was wrong. And if I had to expose everything to ensure Michael's legacy, and my family was protected, so be it. The moment I arrived at Michael's family house, the tension was palpable. His mother, Auntie Ifioma, was already sitting in the living room, her face clouded with concern. She had been a second mother to me, and I could see the worry in her eyes as I stepped inside. "Jane, you look like you haven't slept in days," she said softly, gesturing for me to sit. "What's going on? How is Michael?" I sat down, my hands clasped tightly together. "Auntie Ifioma, there's something you need to know. Something big. I don't want you to hear this from anyone else." Her gaze sharpened. "What is it, Jane? You're scaring me." I took a deep breath, then looked her straight in the eye. "Michael isn't just in a coma. He's been living a double life. He has been involved in a massive money laundering operation with a woman named Amara. She's been by his side for years, and now she's trying to take everything. His money, his business, and even his family." Auntie Ifioma's face blanched, and she immediately stood up, pacing the room. "What are you saying? This is madness, Jane. Michael has always been a good man. He would never—" "Auntie, please," I interrupted, my voice cracking with emotion. "You need to listen to me. I've seen the evidence. He's been hiding millions, $500 million, and Amara is right in the middle of it. I can't just sit back and let her walk away with everything we've built." Her face twisted with confusion. $500 million? But how? Where is all of this coming from? How did we miss it? I shook my head. "It's all been hidden, Auntie, in shell companies' offshore accounts. And now Amara is trying to claim it all. She's already signed consent forms for Michael's medical care, making decisions as if she were his wife. I need you to help me fight this. We have to protect what's left of our family." I could see the shock in her eyes, but there was also something else. Something I hadn't expected. Auntie Ifioma wasn't just shocked. She was angry. "If this is true, Jane, we will not let her get away with it. We are a family. and no one, not even her, can tear that apart. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Finally, someone was on my side, truly on my side. But the battle was far from over. Auntie Ifioma was right about one thing: we were a family, and families fight for each other. The doorbell rang, cutting through the silence in the room. Auntie Ifioma's eyes narrowed. I wasn't expecting anyone. I stood up, my heart racing. Who could this be? When the door opened, I was taken aback. It was Michael's younger brother, Chuka. He had always been the quiet one, the one who stayed out of the family drama. But today he looked different. There was a certain coldness in his eyes as he stepped inside, followed by a man in a sharp suit. The man had a clipboard in his hand and an air of authority about him. Auntie Ifioma, Jane, Chuka said, his voice tight. We need to talk. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't good. Chuka, what is this? Auntie Ifioma asked, her voice laced with suspicion. Chuka didn't answer. Instead, he gestured to the man beside him. This is my lawyer, Mr. Adewale. He's here to help us with the situation regarding Michael's assets. My eyes narrowed. Michael's assets? I took a step forward. What do you mean? Help? Michael is in a coma. What are you trying to do? Chuka's eyes flicked to Mr. Adewale, who stepped forward, his gaze cold and calculating. We're here to make sure Michael's business is taken care of, Mrs. Osunbayi, he said, his tone matter-of-fact. There's a lot at stake, and Amara has the legal documents in place to take control. We're here to ensure that Michael's interests are protected. I was shaking with anger. Amara had her claws in everything. She was already controlling Michael's life from his hospital bed. And now Chuka was siding with her? No, I said, my voice rising. This is our family's business, and I won't let her take everything from us. If you're really family, Chuka, you'll fight for us, not against us. The room fell into a tense silence. Chuka stared at me for a moment, his face unreadable. I'm doing what's best for Michael, he finally said, his voice cold. And that's all I'll say for now. Before I could respond, he turned and walked out the door, Mr. Adewale following closely behind. The sound of the door slamming shut echoed through the house, leaving me standing there, feeling more alone than ever. Auntie Ifioma and I stood in the living room, the weight of what had just happened settling heavily around us. Chuka had betrayed us. But this was just the beginning. There was still so much more to uncover, and I wasn't going to stop until I had all the answers. No matter what it took, I was going to protect my family. And I wasn't going to let Michael's secrets, his betrayal, destroy everything we had left. The tension at Michael's family home was suffocating. After Chuka's betrayal, I felt more alone than ever. It wasn't just Amara and Michael anymore. It was the entire system they had built, and now even my own brother-in-law was playing a part in it. I couldn't just sit back and let them control everything. Michael may be lying in a coma, but I was wide awake, fighting for what was mine. I sat in the living room with Auntie Ifioma, the weight of our conversation hanging between us. Jane, this is serious. You need to be prepared for what's coming. Chuka has always been quiet, but now I'm starting to think he's been involved in something bigger than we know. I nodded, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. I'm not going to let Amara or Chuka have everything, Auntie. This is bigger than just Michael and me. It's about our children, about everything we've worked for. Auntie Ifioma rubbed her temples, clearly exhausted. I know, but we need to play smart. We can't fight them all head-on. We need to get the evidence. I glanced over at the table where the notebook lay open. I've got that. Michael's business dealings. It's all there. But I still don't know the full extent of his relationship with Amara, or what Chuka's role in this really is. Auntie Ifioma leaned forward. Then it's time we start digging deeper. I'll reach out to some of Michael's old friends, see if they know anything. But Jane, you have to be careful. Amara's not going to sit quietly. I agreed. I needed more than just what was in the notebook. I needed to understand the full web they had woven around us. That night, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I went to the office building where Amara worked. I had no idea if she'd be there after hours, but I had a feeling she would be. She was always working, always scheming. If I could catch her off guard, maybe I could get more information about the money, about the businesses, about everything Michael had been hiding. When I arrived at the building, the lights were dim, and the security guard at the entrance barely glanced up as I walked past him. I had come prepared. I had done my homework. Amara's office was on the top floor, and I knew from Michael's files that her private office was tucked away in the corner. I made my way up the stairs, every step feeling like a pounding drumbeat in my chest. When I reached the top floor, I slipped down the hallway, keeping close to the walls. The building was quiet, and the only sound was the faint hum of the elevator's machinery. I reached Amara's office and found the door slightly ajar. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open. Inside, the room was dark except for the glow of a desk lamp. Amara was sitting at her desk, her back turned to me as she flipped through papers. For a moment, I just stood there, watching her. She looked so calm, so in control. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she clenched her jaw as she worked. She was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. I moved forward, my heart racing. But before I could say a word, Amara spoke. "I've been expecting you," she said, her voice smooth and cold. I froze. How did she know? She turned around slowly, her eyes locking onto mine with an icy stare. "You really think you can take everything from me, don't you, Jane? You think you can walk in here and expose my life like it's some game?" I swallowed hard, my voice coming out steady despite the fear swirling in my chest. "I'm not trying to take anything from you, Amara. I'm just trying to protect what's mine. What's Michael's?" She laughed softly, standing up from her desk. "Michael? You're still clinging to the idea that he's yours? Let me remind you, Jane, he's never really been yours. He's been mine from the beginning. And now, even in his coma, I'm the one who's going to take everything he built." My blood ran cold. She was brazen. She was confident. But she didn't know what I knew. "You're wrong," I said, taking a step forward. "You can't control everything, Amara. Michael may have made mistakes, but I'm still his wife. I'm still his family. And I will expose everything you've been hiding." Amara's eyes flashed with anger, but she quickly regained her composure. "You think you can stop me? You think you have the power? You're nothing without him, Jane. You were always just a footnote in his life, a placeholder until someone better came along. And now that I'm here, you're useless." Her words stung, but I didn't let her see it. "You're wrong. You're forgetting one thing, Amara. You may have money, you may have power, but you don't have loyalty. You don't have love. And when the truth comes out, everything you've built will crumble." She stepped closer, her face inches from mine. "You don't scare me. I've won, Jane. You've already lost." But as she said those words, I couldn't help but feel a surge of confidence. She might think she had won, but she didn't understand the game I was playing. She didn't know how much I had already uncovered. And in the end, the truth was always more powerful than any lie. I turned to leave, but before I did, I glanced over my shoulder. "We'll see, Amara. We'll see who really wins in the end." As I walked out of the office, I knew this wasn't over. It had just begun. The game was on. I had spent the last few days on edge, caught between the tension at Michael's bedside and the growing unease of Amara's presence in our lives. I was running on fumes, sleep-deprived, emotionally drained, and drowning in the weight of the situation. But I wasn't going to stop. Not now. Couldn't. Amara thought she had the upper hand, but I was done letting her call the shots. The truth was out there, hidden beneath layers of secrets and deceit, and I was going to uncover every last bit of it, no matter the cost. The next morning, I went straight to Michael's lawyer, the one who had been handling his business dealings for years. I needed answers, and I needed them now. The office was cold and sterile, the air thick with tension as I walked in. The lawyer, Mr. Fashola, was sitting behind a massive desk, papers stacked neatly in front of him. He didn't seem surprised to see me. "Mrs. Osunbai, what brings you here today?" I didn't waste any time with pleasantries. "I need you to tell me everything about Michael's business. About the money, the investments, and most importantly, the trust he set up. I know Amara is involved, and I want to know exactly how." Mr. Fashola's expression hardened. "I can't give you that information, Mrs. Osunbai. Michael's affairs are private." I leaned forward, my voice steady but firm. "I'm not asking for a favor, Mr. Fashola. I'm asking for what's rightfully mine. My husband is in a coma, and Amara is trying to take everything from me. I need you to help me protect what's ours, what's my family's." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I understand your frustration, but there are legal matters in place. Michael left explicit instructions that Amara is to manage certain assets in his absence. I'm bound by those instructions." My heart raced. So it was true. Michael had given her control. And where does that leave me? "Unfortunately, Mrs. Osunbai," Mr. Fashola said, his tone softer now, "it leaves you with very little. Legally speaking, you don't have much claim over the assets right now." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Couldn't breathe. This was it. This was how easily everything could be taken from me. I struggled to find my words. How could he do this to me? How could he just give her everything? "Michael's business was complex," Mr. Fashola said. "He made arrangements for situations like this, ensuring that someone competent could handle things while he was incapacitated. Amara was his trusted partner, and he trusted her to handle the business." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. "But I'm his wife, not her. I should be the one making these decisions. I should be the one protecting our family." Mr. Fashola looked at me, his eyes filled with sympathy. "I know this is hard, Mrs. Osunbai, but legally there's nothing I can do. I can't help you override the trust Michael put in place." I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping across the floor. "Then I'll find a way to fight this. I will get the truth. You haven't heard the last of me, Mr. Fashola." As I walked out of his office, I felt a mixture of rage and helplessness. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Michael had truly planned this all along. He had set up everything so that Amara could step in and take control, while I was left with nothing. But that wasn't going to be the end of it. I had one more card to play. I immediately called Ifeoma, my mind racing. "Auntie, I've got a plan. We're not going down without a fight." "What's the plan?" she asked, her voice cautious but filled with hope. "I'm going to bring everything to light. Amara may have control now, but there's one thing she doesn't know. Michael had other accounts, ones he kept secret from everyone, including her, and I know exactly where they are." There was a brief silence on the line. "You know where the accounts are?" "I do," I said, my voice steady. "Michael trusted me more than anyone. He just didn't think I would figure it out. But I did. And now we're going to take back control." I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. The game had changed. I wasn't just fighting for the truth anymore. I was fighting for the future of my family, for the life I had built with Michael. I wasn't going to let Amara or anyone else take that from me. The next step was risky, but I was ready. I had to follow the trail, find those accounts, and expose Amara for who she really was. But I wasn't going to do it alone. I was going to make sure Michael's family, his true family, was on my side. The weight of everything that had transpired was finally starting to settle in. I had spent days, weeks, trying to piece together the fractured pieces of my life. My marriage, Michael's secrets, and the woman who had slipped into my place with ease. But now, I had something even more powerful than the documents, the accusations, or the lies, the truth. And the truth was something Amara couldn't control. I had found the accounts, hidden away in a place Michael thought no one would look, were assets far greater than I had ever imagined. And now, armed with this knowledge, I had the upper hand. I gathered my family together, the ones who still stood by me, and prepared for the final confrontation. Michael's siblings, his cousins, and even a few close friends who had been in the dark about his business dealings. We were all going to face Amara, and I wasn't backing down. The day of the meeting arrived, and I stood outside Michael's family home, feeling a sense of calm I hadn't felt in days. Auntie Ifioma was by my side. As always, her presence a grounding force. The others were inside, preparing for the inevitable clash. "Are you ready for this, Jane?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with an unwavering strength. I nodded. "I have to be. We have to end this today." We walked inside, and the tension in the room was immediate. Amara was already there, sitting in the same chair where she had first dismissed me, her confident smile never wavering. Her lawyer, Mr. Adewale, stood beside her, a silent guardian to her conquest. "Jane," Amara said, her voice dripping with arrogance, "I hope you've come to terms with the fact that it's over. Michael made his choice. You were always a shadow in his life." I stood tall, unshaken. "You think you've won, don't you?" I said, my voice firm. "But this isn't over. Not by a long shot." I turned to face the others in the room. "Everyone here knows that Michael's business, his legacy, is built on lies. But today I'm going to expose those lies. And I'm going to take back what's mine." Amara's eyes flickered with something like doubt, but she quickly masked it with a cold smile. "What are you talking about, Jane? You're just grasping at straws." I reached into my bag and pulled out the documents I had secured, proof of the hidden assets, accounts Michael had kept secret from everyone, including her. The room went silent as I laid the papers out on the table. "Here's the truth, Amara," I said, sliding the documents across the table. "These are the accounts Michael had been keeping hidden. And these," I continued, pointing to a section of the documents, "are the businesses that you've been trying to take control of. But you've forgotten one thing. You're not the rightful heir to any of this." Amara's eyes widened for the first time, her composure cracking. "You don't know what you're talking about," she hissed, her voice low and threatening. "Michael entrusted me with everything. I have the legal documents to prove it." I smiled, the feeling of victory growing stronger with each word. "And you think that changes anything? Michael might have trusted you, but you've overstepped. You're not just a partner, Amara. You're a fraud." The room buzzed with murmurs as Michael's family members began to look at Amara with suspicion, the tide beginning to turn against her. She could feel the walls closing in, but she refused to back down. "You're lying?" Amara spat, standing up abruptly. "You think you can just walk in here and take everything? Michael is mine. He always has been." "No," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. "He was my husband. And no matter what you've done, no matter what you think you've built, you will never take that from me." Auntie Ifioma stepped forward, her presence commanding. "Michael may have made mistakes, but we're family, and we'll fight for what's ours. You don't have the power you think you do, Amara." The room went quiet as everyone turned their gaze to Amara. She stood frozen for a moment, then her face twisted into an expression of pure fury. "You think this is over? You think you've won? I'll make sure Michael never wakes up to see you or your family again." Her threat hung in the air like a dark cloud, but I didn't flinch. I knew what she was trying to do. Intimidate me, shake me, but she didn't realize that I wasn't the same woman she had underestimated. "I'm not afraid of you," I said calmly. "I've already won. You're nothing without Michael's lies. And when he wakes up, he'll see the truth. We'll make sure of it." Amara's eyes burned with hatred, but she knew she was losing. Her lawyer stepped forward, trying to regain control of the situation. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, his voice shaky. "We'll resolve this in court. We'll settle this legally." But it was too late. The truth had already been laid bare. Michael's family stood behind me, and the power had shifted. Amara no longer held the cards. She was exposed, and her grip on everything Michael had built was slipping. I looked around at Michael's family, their faces a mixture of anger, disbelief, and determination. "We're taking back what's ours," I said, my voice steady. "And we'll do it together." As I stood there, surrounded by the people who still believed in me, I knew this was the beginning of a new chapter. Michael's coma might have kept him in the dark for now, but when he woke up, he would see the woman who had fought for him, for our family, and for everything we had lost. And Amara? She would never win. Not as long as I was standing. The days following the confrontation were a whirlwind. It felt like everything was falling into place, but the pressure was relentless. Michael remained in a coma, his fate uncertain, while the battle for control over his empire raged on. But something inside me had shifted. The fight wasn't just for survival anymore, it was for justice. And I wasn't going to stop until I had what was rightfully mine. Amara had been exposed. Her facade was shattered, and the truth was clear. She was never Michael's rightful partner, just a predator who had latched onto the life we had built. Michael's family had come together, not just to support me, but to rebuild the trust that had been broken by years of lies and manipulation. It wasn't easy, but we had taken back control. The hidden accounts had been uncovered, the fraudulent business dealings exposed, and the legal battle had begun. Michael's assets, everything he had worked so hard for, were now safely in the hands of those who truly cared for him, and I was finally free to heal. But even with all that power, there was still one thing that lingered in the back of my mind. Michael. What if he never woke up? What if the life I had fought so hard to protect was taken from me in an instant? I spent every day at the hospital, sitting by his side, talking to him, hoping that somehow he could hear me. I would tell him about the children, about the family, about the life we had built. I spoke to him about Amara, about the betrayal, but I always ended with the same words. "I'm here. I'm fighting for us. I won't stop." Then, one evening, after I had spoken to him like I always did, something changed. Michael's fingers twitched. I gasped, my heart racing. Was it a sign? I wasn't sure, but I couldn't ignore it. I ran to get the nurse. She came in, and as we waited for the doctor to arrive, the minutes felt like hours. And then it happened. Michael's eyes fluttered open. It took a moment for him to focus, but when he finally looked at me, his face was confused, but there was a spark in his eyes. "Jane," he whispered, his voice hoarse. Tears filled my eyes as I held his hand. "Michael, you're awake." His gaze softened as he took in the sight of me, and I could see the confusion in his eyes, the struggle to remember everything. "What happened? Where am I? Why does it hurt so much?" "You've been in a coma, Michael," I said, my voice breaking with emotion. "You were in an accident, but you're okay now. You're going to be fine." He seemed to process my words slowly, his gaze drifting around the room. "And Amara? Is she?" I shook my head, a bitter smile forming on my lips. "Amara isn't here, Michael. She tried to take everything from us, everything we built. But I stopped her. I fought for what was ours." Michael's face shifted, guilt and confusion crossing his features. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was stupid. I thought I could escape. But I didn't see what I was losing." I squeezed his hand, my heart swelling with a mixture of relief and resentment. "You almost lost everything, Michael. You almost lost me, the kids, the family. But I didn't give up on you. I fought for us." Michael looked at me, his eyes full of regret. "I'm so sorry, Jane. I was a fool. I took everything for granted. I thought I could keep the truth hidden. But I see now what I almost lost." The emotions that had been buried inside me for so long began to rise to the surface. Anger, pain, and betrayal flooded through me. But I couldn't let them overwhelm me. Not now. I had to be strong. For him. For us. "I'm not doing this for you, Michael," I said, my voice firm but gentle. "I did it for our children. I did it for us. Because no matter how broken we were, I knew there was still hope. And now you need to make things right." He nodded, his eyes filled with sorrow and understanding. "I will. I swear to you, Jane, I will make things right. I'll do whatever it takes." As I looked at him, I realized something. This wasn't just about the money, the assets, or the betrayal. It was about our family. And if Michael was truly awake and ready to fight for us, then maybe there was a chance to rebuild. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be quick. But we would heal together. Amara had taken so much from us. But in the end, the real victory wasn't in the money or the power. It was in reclaiming what mattered most. And that was something no one, not even her, could take from me. The weeks after Michael woke up were a blur. We were back at home, but the scars of everything that had happened were still fresh. His recovery was slow, and the physical toll of the accident had left him fragile. But it wasn't just the physical injuries that haunted him. It was the emotional damage, the guilt that weighed heavily on his conscience. I watched him struggle to rebuild his life, to make amends for the things he had done. Every day he worked hard to regain my trust, to repair what had been broken between us. But the truth was, no matter how much he tried, it wasn't easy. And I couldn't forget what he had done. Amara had been taken out of the picture, but the damage she had caused wasn't so easily erased. The betrayal had shaken me to my core, and I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive Michael. Still, we were both trying to heal, trying to rebuild, and most importantly, trying to move forward together. One evening, as we sat on the porch together, Michael turned to me, his eyes filled with regret. "Jane, I don't know how to make up for everything, but I promise I will spend every day of my life trying. You and the kids, you're all that matter to me. You always have been." I looked at him, my heart torn between the anger of the past and the hope for the future. "I don't need grand gestures, Michael. I don't need the money or the business. I just need you to be here, to be the man you promised to be." He nodded, his face solemn. "I know, and I will be. I'll be here for you, for the kids, for us." As the days passed, we worked together to pick up the pieces. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the weight of everything felt like too much to bear. But slowly, the bond between us started to heal. The trust didn't return overnight, but with every small gesture, with every conversation, we started to rebuild the foundation of our marriage. One day, as we sat at the kitchen table with our children, laughing together over dinner, I realized that this moment, this feeling of warmth of family, was the true victory. Not the money, not the power, not the business, but the love that we had fought so hard to protect. We were stronger now, not just as a couple, but as a family. And that was all that mattered. Amara had come into our lives like a storm, but in the end, it was our resilience, our ability to come together, that had triumphed. We had been through hell, but we were still standing. And we were determined to move forward, leaving the past behind. Michael's business had been restructured, his assets now properly managed and safeguarded. He had made amends with his family, and together we had moved on from the chaos that had once consumed us. We were starting fresh, learning to trust again, and building a future where love and family came first. The road ahead wasn't going to be without challenges, but I was ready. We were ready, because in the end, the greatest victory wasn't in the money, the revenge, or the power. It was in the strength we found in each other. And that, I realized, was worth everything. Thank you so much for your incredible support. Your likes, comments, and shares mean the world to us. Before we dive into today's heart-wrenching story, please subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell, and drop a comment below. Let us know where you're watching from. Are you tuning in from Lagos, New York, London, or somewhere else? We love connecting with our global family,